And in order for Quincy to remain an economic driver for our region, we must not fall behind. Leaders like QND Principal Mark McDowell, who took the helm last year of the premier parochial high school in our region. Quincy Notre Dame can not only boast that they have a 100% graduation rate, but they can also tell you about their 2013 graduating class, which has a 95% enrollment in college. Leaders like Dr. John Letts, who has grown John Wood Community College into an education destination for those wanting field-specific training and for those who want to go on to a higher institution of learning. This year, they announced their Associates in Engineering Science program, which will give 19 local students the start they need to begin a career in engineering. And did you know that John Wood leads the state in terms of manufacturing credentials earned by students? The Illinois Manufacturing Association recently informed the school that John Wood is in the top 2 community college and training institutions statewide in assessments and the number of credentials issued in 2013 by the Manufacturing Skills Standard Council. Leaders like QU President Dr. Bob Gervasi, who has overseen the historic opening of the Connie Neiman Center for Music, the recent announcement of a $2 million gift to renovate the North Campus Science Lab, and also new construction of an academic success center located at the lower level of the Brenner Library. This construction is possible due to a $436,000 anonymous gift. The new facility will be open and operational by the fall semester of 2014. A recent study cites that in 2018, 60% of our jobs nationwide will require at least some form of post-secondary education. Yet in Quincy, 49% of our workforce has a high school diploma or less. Ladies and gentlemen, we can disagree about a lot of things, but we must be unified in an effort to make sure Quincy's workforce of today is ready for the jobs of tomorrow. This month, we took the first steps towards ensuring our residents have more of a college education when I was joined with 6 other institutions of learning for a citywide FAFSA challenge. But I am here today to tell you that this was just the first step, and the commitment to a proactive, citywide collaboration between our public schools, parochial schools, and post-secondary institutions of learning will last throughout my administration. We have School Board President Stephanie Irwin, Principal Mark McDowell, Dr. John Letts, incoming President Mike Elvey, Dr. Robert Gervasi are all here today. If they could stand up, and please give them a round of applause for being leaders in our city. 9 months ago, I was sworn in as mayor, and during that period of time, Quincy has shown itself to be robust and strong. The city of Quincy has always had a vigorous and diverse economy that has been the envy of many cities. It is a priority of my administration to make economic development a key part of our long-term growth strategy. One of the first acts that I did as mayor was to strengthen the city's partnership with Greta by joining their board of directors. It was that partnership, along with Adams County, that conducted the first annual survey of the business environment in our area. And I'm happy to announce that over 200 employers filled out that survey, and we now have a benchmark that will now help us promote our strengths and to solve our weaknesses. We have members of Greta here today, and with Adams County, if you could stand up and say thank you for being a partner in our economic development efforts in Quincy. Thank you so much. During the campaign, I promised to be a mayor who would have an ongoing dialogue with our industries. During my first quarter in office, I visited 50 of our largest employers in town. The conversations were not only to educate me on the many facets of their industries, but to find out what the city of Quincy can do to help those industries grow. Thanks to that ongoing dialogue, I am proud to announce today that on the Finance Committee's agenda this Monday night will be a resolution to support a grant application for a project between the City of Quincy, Cole Wholesale, and the IDOT Economic Development Program. If awarded, it will result in a $430,000 reconstruction of 2nd Street between Main and Hampshire. Cole Wholesale has not only committed to investing their own money into the project, but has agreed to hire 22 full-time positions, bringing in an annual salaries worth of $700,000 in our community. This is a great example of our city, our state, and private industry working together for the betterment of Quincy. My administration has also worked to usher in a new era of performance in our city government. In August, we launched the Quincy Scorecard, Quincy's first online tool that gives citizens the ability to evaluate employee morale, the efficiency of our operations, the quality of our service, and our overall financial health. The data has been updated quarterly and will be available for you to judge my administrations in year 1 through year 4. With a quick look at our website, www.quincyil.gov, you can see that in 2013, our Quincy Police Department responds to high priority calls an average of 4 minutes and 45 seconds. The Quincy Fire Department arrived on scene within 5 minutes of being dispatched 89% of the time. Both are improvements to the year before. You can see that it takes 31 days for a site plan review to be completed. This is a process where our professionals in planning and development work with developers to turn a concept into a reality. Instituting a performance-based city means we are working every day to make sure that if it matters to you, it matters to us. When a city government works together across every department, there is truly no limit to what we can accomplish. And I can think of no greater example of our city departments working together than that Newcomb Hotel fire that occurred in September. I don't know too many Quincyans that didn't watch that fire in awe and in sadness on that fateful Friday night. Not just in awe of the flames, but of the professionalism of all the individuals, both in the cities and in the agencies, who fought the fire that night and to help keep us safe. I want you to think about this. A 5-alarm fire was set around 9 o'clock that Friday night. Within 12 hours, the site was secured. 24 hours later, a demolition contractor was on site. 36 hours later, demolition began. By the end of the week, demolition was largely completed with traffic restored to normal conditions. And just 10 days later, the man who set the fire was in custody. This extraordinary effort was thanks to the Quincy Fire Department, the Quincy Police Department, the staff of Planning and Development, and the crews at Central Services. We now have hired a demolition contractor who is on site, ready to finish the removal, and according to the timetable, the site should be cleared and ready for development by the Dogwood Festival. It is now the mission of the City of Quincy, Greta, HQBD, to work together to market the site, find a developer, and to restore the integrity of our historic square. You know, when I ran for office, I also ran on ushering in a new era of transparency in our government, and a philosophy of openness to help solve our city's challenges has been and will always be a central theme during my administration. Thanks to programs like the Lunches in the Park with the Mayor, Quarterly Contractors Hour, Citywide Town Hall, and Forums on Garbage and Recycling, in just 9 months, over 600 residents of Quincy have become a part of the solution by voicing their concern and proposing ideas. I want you to think about what we were greeted with 9 short months ago. Quincy Regional Airport went from being awarded the Airport of the Year in 2010 to being in peril with the FAA in 2013. Not only were we cited for several violations that range from the failure to complete required training of our personnel to life safety drills not being done. One FAA official said, and I quote, "The lack of adequate airport management oversight and sufficient resources was apparent," unquote. It was clear that the direction of our airport was in disarray. Thanks to the Aeronautics Committee and the Quincy City Council, we rearranged personnel and now have hired a full-time airport manager while only increasing the airport's budget by $2,600. I can report to you that the FAA last month completed their inspection and considerable improvements were made at the airport, and all of the FAA concerns have been addressed. And thanks to our great partners at Cape Air, ridership rose by 3% in 2013, and we have qualified for $1 million in grant money from the federal government to improve our infrastructure at the airport. And when I took office, contracts for recycling, yard waste, and landfill were all set to expire in December. Our garbage and recycling trucks were 13 years old, falling into disrepair, little money set aside for the vehicle replacement. The program's budget deficit had grown close to $1 million a year, and the city had been discussing this issue for over a year. This week, the council joined together for a vision that addressed sticker prices for the first time in 22 years, identified revenue to pay for new trucks, and to set aside money for vehicle replacement. With the new revenue generated, we will be able to purchase new trucks. Our trucks will have upgraded technology, which will not only give customers the option to use a tow, but will work to reduce our workers' compensation liability. Thanks to the work done between the council and the administration, we now have a vision that will lead our garbage and recycling program out of the 20th century and into the 21st century. When I was sworn into office, I did so with a budget that was adopted by a previous administration. The budget that was adopted had a general fund budget that planned on spending $1.7 million more money than the revenues that we were projected to bring in. If my administration chose to follow that budget, we would have been left with only $2,000 in fund balances and less than 2 payrolls in cash reserve. Our projections in the fall show that if we continued down that path, we would have been out of money next year and dug ourselves into a deep financial hole. But my administration tightened our belt, realigned departments, absorbed positions, and watched every dollar we spent. And I am pleased to report to you that we are on course to spend $1.2 million less than the proposed budget, and almost 4% reduction. We began the year projecting a year-end balance of only $1.1 million in total reserves, and we are now projected to end our fiscal year with $3.4 million in total reserves. And while I am proud of what we've accomplished in less than a year, we cannot be content with the status quo. We must continue to make sound decisions today to ensure our children have a better tomorrow. While the priorities that we will focus on next year are many, I want to highlight a few of those for you in the room today. First, the City of Quincy must continue to be an economic hub for our region. We can do this by working with our existing businesses and aggressively marketing ourselves to new opportunities. One of the most critical projects we need to get done in the upcoming year is to renew our Enterprise Zone designation. My friends, this will be no easy task. In just 18 years, the incentives involved with being designated an Enterprise Zone have assisted businesses in our area with creating over 4,100 jobs and retaining over 16,000 jobs. Over 18 years, the investments in the zone have totaled more than $460 million. But due to a new state law, we will not just be able to reapply for our zone and receive an extension because there was one awarded to us previously. We will have to compete with countless communities to receive one of 60 designations awarded in 2015. And if we fail, there will be only 27 designations awarded thereafter. And as you know, I have visited many businesses as mayor of the City of Quincy, and I can tell you that there are industries in our city who are ready, willing, and able to make a significant investment in our region if only we can be assured another 15 or 25 years of being designated an enterprise zone. Second, we must work to pass a budget that spends no more than what it takes in. I know this is a new concept to many governments, but our budget must match the financial priorities that you have adopted in your business and at your dinner table. Simply put, a fiscal policy rooted in overspending revenues and depleting reserves creates uncertainty for the future and is one economic downturn away from a crisis. This is not sustainable. To give you an example, since the year 2000, there has only been one proposed budget that had revenues over expenses. And in 1 year alone, in the last 15 years, we lost $1,300,000 in 1 year alone. And so if we continue to adopt those policies every year, eventually our reserves are going to run out. So this year, we need to work to adopt a balanced budget and to work to adopt financial policies that will guide us toward a sound fiscal strategy, both today and in the future. Next year, my administration will also work towards adopting a long-term plan to tackle our public safety pension crisis in the City of Quincy. This year, our public safety pension payments increased over $340,000 for a total of $4.2 million. To give you an example of the trend, since 2000, our required payment to the Fire Pension Fund has increased by 254%. and payment to the police pension fund rose by 226%. Next year, if we are committed to keeping our tax rate flat, in order to make our full pension payment, a conservative projection shows that we will have to find over $230,000 in cuts to our budget. Another actuarial projection shows we would need to find about $600,000 in cuts to our budget. This is a trend that does not look to get any better unless Governor Pat Quinn and the state legislators get serious about adopting reform. Until then, we will have to face the economic realities of the day that our current financial structure can no longer meet these pension demands. During this next year, we must also adopt a 5-year comprehensive infrastructure plan. For far too long, the city has used a budget process which puts infrastructure dollars last in the equation instead of putting it first. To give you an example, when the purchase tax was adopted in 1991, 65% of the proceeds went to infrastructure and 35% went to the general fund. Over time, that number has reversed itself. Last year's budget used only 22% of the revenues towards infrastructure from the purchase tax. To give you an example of our challenges, in order to maintain a 30-year life cycle on our streets, we must repave 6 miles of streets every year. But last year, due to fiscal constraints, we were only able to repave 5. And I think it's important to note, when we have this 5-year comprehensive infrastructure plan, that this year, the next 2 years, we will have $1.5 million less to spend on our streets, our sewers, and our sidewalks because we're still paying for our hydropower project. But my administration this year will propose a budget that directs a minimum amount of funding earmarked for infrastructure that citizens can count on every year. And based on conversations with aldermen, department heads, and citizens, my administration will propose a 5-year infrastructure plan based on those revenues so citizens can hold us accountable for improving Quincy's infrastructure. Last, we must make steps towards updating our long-term vision for Quincy. Our zoning code was adopted in the 1940s and hasn't had an overhaul in decades. Our vision for the Broadway corridor on Central Business District were both adopted in the mid-1990s. Think about all the changes that have occurred in Quincy since then. The reason that Quincy today is the gem of the Midwest is because every generation has steered our city with a common vision. It is time for a new generation to take up the mantle of leadership in Quincy and to once again develop a vision that will unify us for the years to come. My fellow Exchange-ites, honored guests, citizens of Quincy, this year is going to be a year filled with historic opportunities for our city. The lighting of the Bayview Bridge will be complete without using city tax dollars. Companies like Cole Wholesale, Hollister Whitney, and NAPI will continue to grow, and our great city that we know and love will turn 175 years old. But I'll ask you one question. What are you doing today to make sure 175 years from now, Quincy will continue to be the gem of the Midwest? I challenge each and every one of you here today or listening at home over the next year, join one of our city commissions, attend a town hall, help a charity, help one of your neighbors. Do whatever you can to make sure that 175 years from now, the city that we know as the Gem City will shine brighter than ever before. I thank you for the time, and may God bless our great city.